Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
We're just waiting on Craig Button. A reminder that all of our guests today on this Tuesday are brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort, located oceanside in beautiful Parksville. The Bayside Resort is one of Vancouver Island's premier getaway spots. Call now to book your reservation and mention Donnie and Dolly for 10% off your nightly room rate. Also, be sure to grab a Donnie and Dolly hat or T-shirt now on sale at the Bayside. Book your island getaway today at BaysideOceanfrontResort.com or call 250-248-8333. How are we doing with Craig Button? We're just waiting on Craig Button. Interesting night last night of the National Hockey League. Yes. We just finished a conversation talking about days of the week and how they pertain to the best day for football.
Sports, yeah.
CFL,
football.
Saturday or Sunday for playoff games. What about Monday night? Monday Night Hockey, I think, is an initiative with Sportsnet, and they do such a fine job covering the Canucks. Anyway, that was a joke. Are you with me here?
I got it.
So last night
you were ranting in our text.
But you had
night.
Connor McDavid against Sidney Crosby up in Edmonton, a game that the Edmonton Oilers came back
Good
in
high-scoring game.
Ended up winning 6-3. Pretty entertaining game. Two of the marquee players, generational players in the National Hockey League. You also had Phil Kessel tying the Ironman record.
Keith Yandle's
Ironman record, and he was on Sportsnet's coverage. The Canucks are a story right now, folks. I hate to say it, but it's a pretty big story. So a lot of significant games. Ottawa won last night. They've won 4 straight. They're playing well. All that on a Monday night. It seemed kind of strange. You mentioned 12,000 at the Ottawa game.
Ottawa, 12,000, not good.
That had to do a lot with, the way Ottawa's played, for the last several years, even though they're very promising right now. But Monday night is not a night that people think, I want to get, I've got to work tomorrow and the rest of the week. I want to go out of my house and watch a game when I can watch it on TV. I just thought it was an interesting, and I haven't looked at the rest of the NHL Monday night schedule, but I just thought it was pretty interesting. You had all those significant games on a Monday, when a couple of Sundays ago, I know they don't want to go against the NFL, there were no games. Okay. We got Craig? Joined now by TSN Scouting Director Craig Button. Thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I am really well. How are you guys today?
Very, very well. Am I off base here, just thinking that last night was a little unusual with a lot of big games on a Monday?
Yeah, I think it is unusual. I mean, you have Edmonton and Pittsburgh playing on a Monday, right? You have Toronto playing Vegas. Obviously Carolina was in Vancouver. I mean, it just you load up the schedule on a Monday versus Monday Night Football. I know we talk about Sunday, but it would seem to me that you got a marquee event with 97 versus 87 in Edmonton. Monday night doesn't seem to be your ideal product placement.
Hurricanes over the Canucks. I'm sure you've heard, Craig, 3-1. That's 7 straight losses for the Vancouver Canucks. I listened to you yesterday, saw tweets. How much of this do you hang on Bruce Boudreau?
I don't know. Bruce doesn't acquire the players. I mean, the blue line is not his doing. I mean, that's put in place by management. So, at this point in time, I mean, you can always look at areas of your team that you want to be better in, and you can say, okay, the coach, can do a better job here. Bottom line is the Vancouver Canucks are not good enough with the blue line they have currently in place. And that includes, I know Quinn Hughes didn't play, and I know he's going to be out. That includes Quinn Hughes. You know what? You cannot have just about every one of your defensemen being a bottom pair defenseman and expect to compete against good players and good teams and have success. And that's where the Vancouver Canucks find themselves. I mean, if you look last night at the game, and it's a 1-goal game, it's 3-2 and everything, it was anything but a 1-goal game. I mean, Carolina obliterated the Vancouver Canucks in terms of slot shots and high-quality shots and everything that went with it. And, when you look down your bench and you're Bruce Boudreau and you're just saying to the guys, go out and do the best you can. And I think they are. I think they are doing the best they can. But it's not good enough against good teams and good players. And that's not on Bruce. I've been very clear. Everybody knew what the problem was during last season, at the end of the season, in the summer. It has not been addressed. And I've said this too, guys, and I got zero time for it. Zero time for it. When I hear management talk about how hard it is to do things, yeah, guess what? It's hard. And if you can't do the job, we'll find somebody else that can do the job. Your job is to know what the problem is and find solutions. Management has not found a solution to the problems that are evident to everybody.
4-1-1. We're talking about the Carolina Hurricanes. One thing really stuck out for me, Craig, after that game, and that was the Canucks. Every post-game interview going on, talking about how there is just no room to move playing the Carolina Hurricanes. They're so disciplined defensively. What is it they do so well, Craig?
Well, they're quick and they're fast. I mean, that's number one and two. So, when you're working as hard to take away chances as you are to create chances, that becomes a real factor. So when they don't have the puck, I mean, they're going to pressure you. They're going to get into your face, into your space, and they're going to force you to have to make plays a lot quicker than you want to. So number one, if you're not playing quick or you're not able to play quick, you're going to be very vulnerable versus a Carolina Hurricanes team. And so they use that as a catalyst everywhere. They use it offensively. They use it defensively. They use it in transition. They use it, in all three areas of all three zones of the ice. So you put all that together and you have the playing personnel that can affect that in so many different ways. Those are big factors for success. And, you watch them play and the players talk about, how suffocating it is. That's how the Carolina Hurricane, and that's why they're a legitimate Stanley Cup contender.
Okay, Craig, Jim Rutherford, veteran guy in the National Hockey League. He's got, what's he going to do here? The word rebuild has come up. You can make a big trade. You can make a coaching change. You've known Jim over the years. Like, what do you think What do you think could happen here? What's going through Jim's head?
Well, I think that you're right. I mean, there's been all the talk about rebuild and everything. Let me just address that first, Rick. They have an elite goaltender. They have an elite defenseman, and they have top forwards. I mean, this isn't a team, and they're young. They're young. We're not talking about a team that's bottomed out and doesn't have any type of youth in their system or youth on their team. They have really good players up front. Again, I talk about Quinn Hughes and Thatcher Demko. So, the idea of a rebuild, and I know Jim used the word transition on the move, So, again, I'm going to go back to it. Like, and Jim acknowledged it on Saturday night in his after hours interview. He talked about we're looking to get defensemen. Okay, I don't think there's any question. Jim knows what the issue is, and now you got to go and execute. And yes, I don't think anybody expected the Canucks to be out 0-5-2. I certainly didn't. I think it's surprising in one respect. So I think that's one thing. And I'm not talking about, you don't have to make a big trade. I learned this from Dale Sutter. We all have an idea of what we want our team to look like and what players fit into different areas of your team. But when you're trying to improve your team, sometimes small improvements are significant and can be really helpful in the short term. It doesn't mean it's going to fit your long-term goals of what you want your team to look like, but you got to work in that area. So I don't think it has to be a big trade. But you got to work at improving and bolstering and strengthening the blue line. But I'll go one step further. And let's go back to the end of the season. And let's look at the dance that went on with Bruce Boudreau and Jim Rutherford. And I think what Jim has to do is get clearly comfortable. Is Bruce Boudreau my coach or is he not my coach? Because it seemed even at the end of the year, with I'll call it a dance, it didn't seem like they were, dancing to the same beat.
Yes.
That's what it seemed like to me from the outside. So I think that Jim has to be very clear in his own mind. Do I want Bruce to be the coach? And it doesn't mean that I like Bruce. I think Bruce is a real good coach, and I think his record shows that. But if the manager or the president in this case doesn't want him to be, then change the coach. Don't dither, move along and get somebody else in there that you feel more comfortable with. There's nothing, it doesn't mean that it's fair. It doesn't mean that that people are not going to be disappointed by it. But if that's how you feel, then get there. I think that's the most critical assessment that Jim has to go through right now with his management group. Am I comfortable with Bruce Boudreau as the coach?
But Craig, it was done backwards. The owner hired the coach first. And for some odd reason, he brought in the GM and the president after. You know this, Craig. Every new GM wants his own guy. And this was done backwards, and now the Canucks are paying the price for it.
Well, and certainly, you know, as you talk about the timeline, that's how it unfolded, and you're right. And so, but that doesn't change, you know, what's going through Jim's mind in the management group right now, right? So, like, you know, you can say it wasn't fair to Jim, or maybe it should have been done in a different way. I agree with you, Rick. I think it should have been done in a different way. But at the same time, you're dealing with the here and now. So that's where Jim has to get very clear about what path do I want to go forward with a coach. And I think that's got to be the biggest thing looming over, you know, him and his management group right now, that decision. Because, you know, unless you're going to make a decision, a strong, firm decision one way or another, you're going to continue to, you know, be kind of twisted in the wind.
Craig, quickly, I don't mean to knock anybody here, but when you look at Phil Kessel, you don't think of him, you don't think of superior conditioning, let's put it that way, throughout his career. And again, I don't want to knock him, and Lord knows we should talk. But what has allowed him to play in 989 straight NHL games?
His conditioning. Come on.
Maybe it is.
He's conditioned. Yeah, like I've watched Phil for a long time. And it's really funny. It's funny how from the outside we look in and we go, oh, Phil doesn't have the body or doesn't look like a well-conditioned athlete. For a couple of things about Phil. He's a great athlete. And you go ask any team that he's ever played on and go ask them for their testing results. He was always in the top 10, 15% of testing results. And maybe that's natural gifts. Maybe that's a thing. But Phil's also one of those people that's like, yeah, I don't care what people think of me. If that's how they want to judge me based on how I look, that's fine too. Phil just goes about his business. I can tell you this. So, I mean, the facts that I tell you, top 10 to 15% of all the testing he did over his career for the most part. And, you know, you can't play 989, 990, closing in on 1,000 consecutive games, unless certainly you have a certain amount of luck. There's no question about it. But you got to be conditioned to go through the grind and the rigors of playing in the National Hockey League. And I think that Phil gets sold short on that in that regard a little bit too much. But the beautiful thing about Phil, he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that's the key. Craig, I know you care. Thanks so much for this, Craig.
Yeah, thanks. You guys have a great day.
You bet.